Hey everybody, it's Todd Kazinka, howtoplayprobasketball.com on the line today. Special guest. This is our latest recording. Some of the ones we have right now are a little bit older that we're updating. And today we have Eric Butler on the line. Eric, welcome.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, anytime. The reason why we have Eric on, he's a friend of mine, and Eric has played pro basketball himself. He is in retirement. He's an old man right now, so to speak. He had a few injuries. He's got a large, burgeoning family, and Eric's going to talk today about how he got his career started as a pro player. And first of all, though, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay. Yeah, I've played high school basketball. Probably wouldn't be considered the guy most people would have expected to go on playing ball, but I grew kind of late and really didn't put in the hours and hours and hours I needed to get to that level until sort of later in high school. So I was kind of I guess what you call a late developer. Ended up walking onto the UBC team, local university team from where I lived, and played there. Sort of got 1 year commitment from the coach. Ended up playing 5 years. Really learned how to put in that time I needed to make up for it. Worked my butt off. Ended up finishing, as a conference all-star and team captain, and had a pretty successful university career. But at the end of it, I really felt like I was still coming into my own. I felt like I had a lot of work left to do to really reach the peak of my potential, which was my goal right from the beginning. And I was 22 when I was finishing university and wanted to keep playing. Like probably a lot of people listening to this podcast right now, it really just, I had that dream and I wasn't ready to let it go. So, I guess that's the basic background story.
Okay, and we're talking about Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So at the time, not a huge basketball country for sending professionals overseas. And so you went to Prince of Wales High School and UBC, that's University of British Columbia. So what was the procedure? How did it go from there? You had your 5 year career, and then lots of players in that fourth and fifth year, they maybe start looking for an agent, or they start preparing for their career after, if they're going to be good enough. What happened with you? How did it all pan out?
Well, I would say it's definitely similar to that. In my final 2 years, I really started thinking about what opportunities I have to play basketball after. And I'll talk about that, but I think what is important for your listener to realize is that a lot has changed since 1997, especially in the technology that allows us to sort of be in contact and look at opportunities. But what hasn't changed, and what I don't think will ever change, is the attitude you need. So when you listen to my story, really what I think the relevant part for what an athlete looking today needs to understand is you need that hunger, you need that desire, and you need that ethic of saying, I am responsible for determining whether I get a job or not. Not some agent, not some coach, because there might be that 1 in 100 player that's going over to Europe that's getting sort of spoon fed, getting it handed to them. But 99 players out of 100, the ones who are successful are the ones who are going to go over and create that opportunity for themselves. And I think that's something that a lot of players don't realize, because when you look at the NBA, when you look at the sort of draft system and making teams, which is what, let's be honest, what most of our exposure to professional basketball is in North America, it's agents, it's teams, it's other people doing the work, and the players just going along for the ride. Well, in Europe, it's not like that at all. It's totally the responsibility of the player. There's literally tens of thousands of players who are at a similar level. And how, if you actually put yourself in the position of the teams over there, how are you making that decision? And I spent 8 years over there. I talked to lots of lots of coaches, lots of managers, and the number of requests they get and sort of pieces of paper coming across their desk, it's amazing. They might get 25 in a day saying, I'm so-and-so from Cleveland, Ohio. I have, these are my stats, bring me over. And it's, how do you differentiate yourself? So for me, I got kind of lucky. I think definitely getting your foot in the door is the first thing, and I was able to get a foot in the door. when my final 2 years, I talked to a few people who knew a little bit about basketball over there, and it was such a different time. There was no internet. I didn't have a way to sort of see, hey, what are the teams that I want to look at? What are the countries that are good? I just tried to talk to a few people I knew around here who had, who had some connections, who maybe, knew about a league. I had a professor at my at UBC who I think he had been living over in England. He knew a little bit about the league, and he told me, oh well, what I would do is I would write the governing body of the league there and try and get them to sort of send you a list of the teams. So that's what I did. I think they sent me a couple magazines. They had a basketball magazine there, and in that magazine they had the list of team managers and stuff like that. So and the addresses of the team. So that gave me access, and I actually wrote them physical letters, no email yet. I sent them a letter in the mail, and I can't remember whether they got any response from that. I did that with a few other countries as well, just trying to get that sort of database of teams, because I really had no idea what that would look like. But what ended up being my best connection, and probably the lesson I learned most, was having a personal tie to a place. And so there was a player who had graduated 5 years before me from UBC, JD Jackson, and JD was, great player for UBC, all-time leading scorer, averaged about 25 points a game in his career. And he had gone over to France and made a really successful career for himself playing professionally there. So one of the things I did was I wrote JD Jackson, found out his number, gave him a call and said, hey, JD, I'm graduating from UBC this year, and I really want to go over and play professionally. Can you, what can you tell me? And he ended up sort of talking to his coach, arranging a tryout with his coach. They flew me over, and I went. They were in the middle of their playoff season, so I guess it was around May of 1997. I just finished my fifth year of eligibility, and that team was in their playoff run. They brought me over. I practiced with them during the week, basically served as a tryout, competing against them all week, and then I signed my first contract from there. And, that was a stroke of luck, but I know I would have made it work some way or another, because I had that attitude. I am making this happen. And if that didn't happen, I had it all arranged for me to fly myself over and go for some tryouts, but that was my idea anyways. And I didn't have to do that. But I think that the takeaway is make it happen yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, Eric? I think that's the point that you make there about getting over there, whatever country, whether it's in the continent of Europe or going down to Australia. That's kind of how I got my coaching started. Is I just went, and once you're there, and they can see you physically, and they see your size, and then they see you play. It's totally different than just watching a video on YouTube or a DVD that they might have received in those days. They can actually have you compete, do the drills, do the workouts, and your job is so much easier once you're there. So what you did, and I can see when you were talking, you kind of had a smile on your face, almost those good positive memories. I don't know if you noticed that you're doing that, but I mean, those are good times. You think back, and I mean, that's how you got started. So what? That was, I think, in Poissy in France, I believe.
Yeah, just a suburb of Paris.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the actual countries and cities and clubs that you played for in your 8-year career.
Okay. Well, I started just, it was an awesome start, just on the outskirts of Paris. We were about 10 kilometers to the west of Paris. I lived in Saint-Germain, which is kind of one of their big clubs, other clubs there, Paris Saint-Germain. I played for a smaller one, Poissy Chateau. But it was a great start to basketball, but it was, it was an eye opener for me too. I'd come from university where, I felt comfortable. I played for 5 years there. I knew all the, every week I knew who I was going up against, and they were all guys with similar backgrounds to me, similar size, similar experience. And all of a sudden I went over and I was playing professionally, and it's a totally different ballgame. And that's one of the reasons why I think, it's difficult for coaches and managers to know who's going to adapt to the season. And instead of a season that runs mid-October to mid-March, we started. I went over there at the end of July and had a preseason until the beginning of September. So it's about a 6-week preseason, and it's intense. It's at least 2 times a day, 6 days a week. Maybe we do one rest and recovery day, the 7th day. Some teams I played on, we did 3-a-days preseason, so it was a lot. And then the season runs from games start September, and we ended the end of May, early June every year. So it's longer too. And I think for those coaches who are looking at the players, they don't know who's going to be able to adapt or not. And that's one of the things where, like you said, Todd, bring yourself over there. You differentiate yourself from that 99% right there who it's very easy to send off an email. It's very easy nowadays to send off a video on YouTube and have it land on someone's desk. It's not easy to get yourself over there and in another country speaking another language and find a way to sort of try out with a team for a week. And I'm not saying that you're going to be greeted with open arms. You're not going to have teams going, oh, wow, this guy came over, flew himself over, let's give him a job. But you are going to create opportunities that aren't necessarily there the other way. And, that making that adjustment to that professional life and living over in Europe, having that long season, playing against guys who are, 34 or 35 and who have been doing nothing but playing professional basketball, especially so many of these European guys, they're playing professionally, the good ones, from the time they're 16 years old. And they're giving up school. They're not going to college. They're not doing some of the things we're doing. They're serious about it. Their life depends on it. And I think that there's a misconception from players, especially over in North America, about what that level of basketball is. And a lot of it comes from just ignorance. We don't see it on TV here. We don't see the level of play, and also a lot of the players there, they're not the flashy, they're not Kobe Bryant or Dwayne Wade, maybe with 45-inch verticals, who are going to make ESPN highlights, but they are players who have studied the game and played it since a young age in a very sort of rigorous training. Their training over there is different. I'm not going to say better, but it's different. It's more skills, more fundamentals. So it's a tough competition, is my point. And so I had to make that adjustment myself, and it took a couple years before I felt in my comfort zone. So I was in France my second year. Basically, I ended up in a situation where I was in between teams. I hadn't really made that adjustment. I hadn't sort of gotten to where I wanted to as a professional yet. So I was in between a few teams. Ended up finishing the year in Austria. And then I spent a couple years there. Had a couple good seasons. We won some championship. I was in a few other championship finals, and moved on to Germany and played in the German Bundesliga. And played there in Germany for 2 seasons before coming back to Austria for another one. And by that point I'd had 2 kids, and like you said, a couple injuries starting to mount up, and decided it was time to pack it up and come home.
Yeah, it's not an easy life. People see the NBA and they see all the money, and then they see Europe, and there's a few countries where people make good money, like really good money. And again, a lot of times it's the superstars, and you're talking about maybe Greece or Spain, Italy, those kind of countries. Germany probably has some good salaries as well. But what the people don't realize is what you said, how good the basketball is. And I constantly on my Planet Hoops website, I get emails from players. Hey, I'm 5'10", but hey, I know I can do it. And I just shake my head, because there's a million players 5'10". And how tall are you? 6'6", 6'5", 6'6"?
Yeah, 6'6".
And I mean, you're playing against guys that size all the time, and there's players that are 6'9", and there's tons of players that are 6'10" and 7 feet, and it's a different game. The international game is totally different, and so the people that think that they can do it, I'm all for them going over there and trying out to prove it, but nobody is going to bring you over there just on your stats without seeing you, without seeing video. I tell everybody, you have to have video for them to see you first. Number one, what we've talked about, you have to get over there and show them whatever place you're going to go to. And I mean, it's you're competing with, like you said, also tens of thousands of players that want that job, that want that lifestyle. So when you said you played in France, in Austria, in Germany, are the salaries pretty much the same there? And what could a player expect to make in some of those European countries? Top players, medium players, maybe rookie players as well.
Well, it's been a few years since I've been over there, so I can't speak all that knowledgeably, but I can give you a general idea that, I think your top tier of basketball would be Spain, and I would probably put Italy as number two. In both those countries, there's players making over $1 million a year. That's not your average player. But even in both those leagues, your average player is probably making a few hundred thousand a year. Most of the countries I played in, that would be more of your top salary. Your top salary might be making $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Germany, every once in a while, you might have a player with an NBA background or that they really want, that they might pay a little bit more than that. But then your average player salary is going to be a lot lower than that. But you got to keep in mind too that most of every contract I had was net of taxes, net of you're giving them a place to live. They're paying all the expenses. Given a car, they're doing everything down to the oil changes, down to all your heat, your light, your garbage. So you really have very little expenses, and it's one thing that when you come back, you got to adjust to regular life. It's you're not used to paying those bills, and generally, I even had in a lot of my contracts most of my meals taken care of at restaurants. So you're able to, if you want, you're able to save 70-80% of your salary and still live a pretty decent life. Certainly a lot of players choose not to do that and spend it all. But I think there's a good opportunity. If you're making $80,000 a year, there's a good opportunity to walk away with $60,000 at the end of the year and not have it be that big a hardship. But like I said, things have changed in the last few years, and I think that probably economic situations in Europe really are probably making it quite a bit different than when I was there. So I can't really speak to what a player could expect going over there right now.
Right now, let's talk quickly about the contract situation, how you went about, because I believe you did this all yourself, and lots of players might do this over there, but lots of people rely on agents, and I know you've had some issues with contracts. The situation in one of the countries where I was involved with you, where contracts don't get paid on time, and you have to fight to get that money. Tell the listeners a little bit about how you structured those contracts and how you went about even learning how to do that, and then maybe, I don't know if you have a PDF or a Word document, like a sample we could maybe get. I don't know if you have that, but just talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's interesting. It's funny you bring that up, the situation when you were over there, because it's a good example of how you just never really know, and things, you can try and protect yourself, but in the end, it comes down to a lot of luck. In that situation you're talking about, our team was late being paid for 3 or 4 months, and we ended up in our contract, which was a contract that I sort of wrote up with the help of another agent, which is kind of a bit unusual. But we ended up having a $50 a day late fee, and on the last day of the season, they handed us a check for all the money outstanding and all $50 per day. And, like I said, it was at least 3 months. I can't remember exactly what it was now. It was about $3,000 in late fees that they gave all of us players. So it worked out really well. And I have other situations that didn't work out nearly as well. I had to take 2 teams to court. I had one in France. It was actually for a second year of a contract. When I went over as my first year, they signed me a 2-year deal, and the second year was for a significant amount of more money. And they decided, well, we could save some money if we just get Eric to renegotiate. And they sort of put me in a really tough situation. And middle of summer, I was already home in Canada. I didn't have any videotape because I had a job for next year, and they said, take this pay cut or else. I didn't react probably the way they wanted to that. I decided I'd take them to court, and I ended up getting all my money and a late payment fee, a penalty fee from the judge. Fantastic situation. I really commend the French courts, I think, in terms of they made it easy for a guy like me to do that. I had the same thing in Germany one year where I had to take a team to court to get the rest of my money, and the court system was really different. I didn't end up getting my money. So it happens. It happens to pretty much every player I know who's over there for long enough. Runs into a team that either can't pay, doesn't want to pay for whatever reason, and you have to be willing to do that. the contracts are important, but in the end, I don't know whether a contract is really going to help you avoid it. Really. So how did I do it? When I first went over, I used basically an agent that the team had suggested I use, and he wrote up the contract. And as I said, it ended up holding up in court, so it was obviously a decent contract. Other years, I had agents who, I had Canadian agents, I had American agents, and I had European agents. I'd have a word of caution to a lot of players going over there. Not warning against an agent, because I think that they're necessary and I think that they can help you, certainly for something like writing up the contract. But my word of caution is that any player that says, oh, I've got an agent finding me a job, I would just say, okay, nod my head and shake and think, I bet you that player won't be over there this year, because if you don't take that personal interest yourself, and you don't, and it's hard. I know it's hard. What do I do? But I think you need to have that sort of involvement and that sort of push, because that same agent that's telling you he's looking for a job for you is probably looking for a job for 100 other players. And if he finds you a job, great. If he doesn't, he's still getting his money from the other players. Whereas for you, you'll be sitting at home wishing you were over there playing.
I think that's a very, very good point. And when you talk to agents, I'm sure they have a different perspective on that. But you're the player. You're the one that is ultimately responsible for finding the situation you want. The agent probably.
Yeah, and you know what, Todd? You say an agent might have a different perspective. Go ahead and ask the agent. Be candid about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, are you telling me you are going to find me a job? How many players do you have? How many do you find a job each month or each year? And if they sit there and straight up tell you, hey, I only take on 15 players because that's all the jobs I think I'll be able to find, great. I mean, if you can find that agent. But I never found ones like that. I found more volume agents that'll say yes to everybody. They'll say they're looking, but really in the end, it came down to me and my work. And I'm not alone. I'm not just telling you about my experience. I had, dozens and dozens of teammates over the years that had very similar experiences, and some great teammates, some national team players who, one of my teammates averaged in the year 28 points a game, and he did that for year after year, had a 17-year career over there. But I don't know whether an agent ever found him a job. It was almost all word of mouth, friends, coaches who knew him, coaches seen him play. So, just keep that in mind, that even players who are over there for a long time, still they're more using the personal connections than they are an agent putting your name across the desk.
Mm-hmm. And I know that your time is running out. You have to go somewhere soon. So because of that, what I want to do is first thank you for everything so far. But I do want to mention your website that you're working on. And I don't know if it's launched yet. It's going to be launched very soon. The Split Second Basketball site. Maybe you can tell the viewers a little bit, or the listeners a little bit about your concept and when that's going to be ready.
Sure. Thanks, Todd. It's www.splitsecondbasketball.com, and it's something I've been working on for the last couple years. The website for the last year, pretty much. It's taken me a long time, but it's something I want to get right, and it will be launched in the next couple weeks here. As you can tell from this interview, I had a long time playing in Europe, and I really learned a lot getting to sort of keep working on my game for that long. And I really got to study a lot of what the best players were doing over there. Because as I said, I arrived over there as a 22-year-old thinking, okay, I'm going to go to Europe and, really be a good player. And I looked at it and realized, there were players out there who were, I was just as strong as, and my conditioning was just as good as, and no matter what I did, they seemed to have a little edge over me, and I couldn't figure it out. And it was, I wanted it so badly. I studied these guys, and it took me a really long time to figure out what the best of the best were doing. But when I did, it made such a difference in my game. What I realized is the best do everything just a split second quicker. And so while I was looking at the game thinking, I need to get my vertical a couple inches higher, I need to run the floor a little bit faster, what it actually was is that the habits that the best have just make them a split second faster, So it's the guy who can catch and shoot. Maybe it takes me 7/10 of a second to catch the ball, shoot, and release it. Well, the best of the best can do it in 4/10 of a second or 5/10 of a second. And when you start getting in that mentality of paying attention to those split seconds in your game, it's amazing what will happen. So my site is dedicated to teaching what I learned over those years, and what I know will make a huge difference for any player out there looking at it. Whether you're somebody who's starting basketball and trying to create the right habits, or you're somebody who's played for years and you're in university and you're looking for that edge, Split Second Basketball is a site dedicated to teaching that, and all the content on there is free, and I think it's going to be a great resource. I run a program in Vancouver for Split Second Basketball, and learned a lot about coaching, and I think that anybody who's interested in improving their game should go to the site.
Awesome, that is great. I look forward to visiting your site. I know I've seen a little sample of it, and it's going to be great for all the listeners when they hear your site. I'll put it up on the interview as well, and with how to play pro basketball. So Eric, I just want to thank you for your time today and your insight. I actually learned some stuff today, and it's always good talking to you. You're very intelligent, and you have a lot of experience and knowledge to pass on, and it's what people are looking for in our particular market is how to get that job overseas. So I just want to thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate getting a chance to talk to you. And, as I said, the site's going to be live. And if anybody has a question that I can help them with the trying to get over there, I know your site's obviously a great resource for them to try to get over there. And, I'd be happy. You can leave a comment on Split Second Basketball. I'd try and get back to you and help you out in any way I can. But I know you're doing great service to everybody, Todd. So thank you for your work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.